r/malicious compliance. First story. Ask me to slow down while driving through my neighborhood. Okay. I live in a very quiet suburban neighborhood with lots of active neighbors, joggers, bikers, dog walkers, baby strollers, kids playing ball in the streets, etc. The speed limit is 25 miles per hour, but when I see lots of foot traffic on the sidewalks, I bring it down to 15 miles per hour or even 10 miles per hour if I see a big group of kids playing in the street. There's this sweet group of kids who play basketball in the middle of the street 8 doors down from my home. When they see cars approaching, they move to the curb and wait for the cars to pass before resuming their game. One day I was driving home from work and I saw the kids out playing, and their mother was on the front lawn talking with another adult. I slowed down to 10 miles per hour and went to the complete opposite side of the street as I crept by. A little while later she knocked on my door and complained about how fast I was driving and that I could have harmed her precious children. I said, the speed limit is 25 miles per hour and I was going 10 miles per hour. How much slower do you want me to go? She said, I don't care, just slow down or else I'm going to call the police. I have a doorbell camera, so I can see you every time you drive by. Okay crazy lady, whatever you say. The next day, the kids were outside playing in the street again. I slowly approached, came to a full stop, and then I took my foot off the brakes and let the car crawl at 1 miles per hour. The kids stared at me all confused as it took me an entire minute to pass through their makeshift basketball court. I continued to do this a few more times until one day the mother came and knocked on my car window as I was crawling by. I lowered my window and asked if there was a problem. She said, why are you going so slow? Are you stalking my children? I said, no, of course not. You demanded that I slow down, so I am. And I rolled up my window and went on my way. She comes banging on my door again and says, don't get smart with me. Now you're going too slow. I said, are you saying that going 10 miles per hour is okay now? Because if you don't like it, you can call the police. She huffed and crossed her arms and stomped off my porch. Second story. We can't use carts? Okay. Long time lurker. First time poster. Also on mobile. So I, 17F, work at a well-known grocery store. Recently, we got new managers who decided to change all of the rules. Instead of allowing us to use shopping carts to take back items that customers didn't want, we have to either use sell carts or walk the stuff up by hand. The problem with that is that there are very few of those in the store, and we can never find any. One of my managers yelled at me for using a cart to take back 3 heavy bins worth of merchandise, saying that I was not allowed to do that. So I got some empty boxes that we had nearby, threw some of the stuff in it, and started walking up to customer service to put it away. She started yelling again that I had to use an L cart, but I told her that the rules only said we can't use shopping carts. I continued to use the boxes to take the stuff back while she stood behind the service desk, glaring at me and talking about me to other managers. The other manager said that technically, I wasn't breaking any rules, so I could continue using the boxes. Edited to add a TL. Doctor. TL. Doctor. Managers told me that I couldn't use shopping carts to take stuff back, so I used boxes, even though they didn't want me to. Third story. A simple preposition. My first experience with malicious compliance came in 7th grade. We had a teacher who decided to punish us all for a few people who wouldn't stop talking by giving us a test. Basically he gave us a list of 150 prepositions and told us that in 3 days we'd come into class and have to be able to list them all from memory on a piece of paper. Oh, and this test would take up the place of one of our normal unit tests, so it would have a big effect on our grade. Cue a whole bunch of middle school panic attacks, as I think most adults would struggle to memorize that. Well, my mom and I worked, and I figured out how to set them to the Battle Hymn of the Republic. I was a strange kid. The morning of the tests, I was one of the very few confident that I could do it. As he handed out a few sheets of paper, the teacher got a ton of questions and finally yelled at us that this was an easy task and we could have duplicates or any order, so long as we got them down on the page. He then did one of those kind of threatening, "Any other questions?" things before telling us we had 30 minutes. Well, because I had them memorized, I was done pretty fast. I then looked around and realized that everyone was panicking. One girl was literally crying and the teacher was watching, super uncomfortable, and it suddenly clicked that I could make this a nightmare for him to grade. So I asked for another sheet of paper, which he gave, and then spent the rest of the time reordering them out of alphabetical order and into a random mess of duplicates. I then made sure to make my original, perfect paper unrecognizable. I got a reasonably high score. I missed a few in my scramble, and the teacher actually commented that my test took him longer to grade than anything else he had ever graded. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Fourth story. It is my day to buy donuts for the entire office as the new person. Well, okay. As the new person at my job, I was told multiple times that I was expected to provide donuts for the entire office. Normally, that's not a big deal. But two people in particular were rude and relentless about the donuts all week. Others joined in also. Apparently, these people recently extorted 2 boxes of Krispy Kremes from someone else. Examples of the behavior: mentioned buying donuts 20 plus times, name calling, interrupted meetings, powered off my computer, losing my work, refusing to answer legit work questions until I buy donuts, on and on. Here's the problem. I was hired in as a senior, 30 years old, and I was not necessarily loving the idea of being told to buy donuts over and over. Hazing really did not seem appropriate at this point of my career, or for anyone else. I didn't want to be a bad sport my first week, so I played along. I politely said that I will not have time this week, but will get to it eventually. In terms of the workforce, I was mature, but I was not very mature as a person overall. I needed a creative way to address this problem. On my way to work, I decided to pick up a cheap bag of small powdered Hostess Donuts donuts at the gas station. I distributed the donuts one by one, desk by desk, making sure to do so barehanded from the bag. I presented the donuts extremely politely, careful to mask my passive-aggressive FU to the whole forced donut process. The reaction from the staff was a lot of the deer in headlights looks. People had no idea if I was a really nice but clueless person, or if I was totally saying F you to the entire donut idea. Most people took the safe choice of being pleasant in return. Some people tried to refuse, but I mentioned the big deal about buying donuts, and still left a donut on every desk. I had originally considered providing a donut to everyone, except the last 2 idiotic pushy people. I started verbally setting it up where they would not receive a donut. However, these 2 idiots were still openly verbally complaining about donuts. As adults, I could tell that this was not going to go away. They could not take a hint to back off. My idea to passive-aggressively snub them was no longer good enough. This had to be more direct. I decided I was 100% done with these guys, regardless of the consequences. I told them I had another idea. I grabbed a plastic knife from the break room and cut the remaining donut in half the long, horizontal way, so I still had 2 circles. The yellow cake was now visible. Then, the most brilliant idea of my life. A new way to hold donuts. 1 donut on each middle finger, with my middle finger in the center hole of each donut. I stopped at both desks. The first guy had his choice of 2 half donuts on my middle fingers. That's right, I was able to give him a double donut middle finger. He now understood that I was completely done with his BS, but he never grabbed a donut. I explained the donuts are actually quite tasty and urged him to take one, but I'm sure I looked like a complete psycho. I was no longer able to stay in character. The good news, his refusal to take a donuts from my middle fingers also allowed the opportunity to provide the last guy a double donut middle finger. I mildly snapped and had a shitty fake grin on my face. I looked him right in the eye. Double donut middle fingers up, no longer saying a word. The reaction of the last person is best described as completely frightened. That's right, I reached a complete breaking point over donuts and scared the hell out of someone. Anyway, after this incident, I was never asked to buy donuts again. Edit below due to more responses than I expected, and I cannot reply to all. Thanks for reading and the, mostly, great responses. For the possible donut hazers, I don't know how to explain it further. These guys were way over the top. This was not normal office behavior. In fact, these guys were in trouble with management also. This is not a normal team building, this was two total idiots that pushed and pushed. I do not need you to go back years to try and retroactively change my behavior. This was a malicious compliance story that I thought was humorous enough to share, nothing more. I snapped and acted crazy, but I'm quite happy now in a good career, and this was years also. It's all good now. I do not need career advice here. Again, all good. In no way am I saying that I acted properly, lol. In fact, it was terrible office response, but I wasn't fired. I ended up taking another position 3 months later. Some of the people in the office actually appreciated that I stood up to these idiots, so it was team building in a way. There's definitely different ways I could have handled this, but it's over now. Even if I handled it differently, generally nice ending stories where nothing happens are not considered malicious compliance. Is that really what you were looking for here? I've purchased food/etc for the office many times since. I've had team building exercises. I've never run into idiotic hazing like this since back then. Again, thanks for reading. I did not intend to annoy anyone that does friendly or normal team building. That type of thing would not have caused me to snap. That's very normal. Okay. Signing off.